Well, hey guys, if you are somebody who suffers from metabolism issues, that means like can't lose weight, having a hard time, really just sluggish, not feeling good, not sleeping well. These are all really classic symptoms of leaky gut, classic digestive issues, really constipation, diarrhea, all that fun stuff. So we're going to talk today about leaky gut. I'm sure that you have heard tons and tons about this. It's kind of in the news. It's in a lot of feeds. If you follow Josh Axe, like everything that he does is about leaky gut right now because it's so real and it's so prevalent. So I'm excited to tell you, I'm going to give you my big 4 causes of leaky gut, and I'm also going to give you my big 5 fixes. Also, you can see my little stick figure here. There's actually an exact picture of me. You can see all the hair. That's really good. Except there's probably big muscles in here somewhere. Just kidding. So what we see here is the digestive tract. So I need you to go over some of this so you can understand what leaky gut really is. So leaky gut basically means that there's an issue in the transportation of good food and bad food in your intestines. So your intestines are what's responsible for digesting your food, pulling the good stuff, ready? The good stuff out of the food you eat. And then it's also responsible for taking the bad stuff and putting it in the lining of your intestines so that you can get rid of it, okay? The problem is when your gut wall is leaky, right? AKA the toxins are able to leak back into your gut lining. It really is a problem. And it's really a digestive issue. It's really kind of a form of toxicity, really. But we got some really good fixes here. It's something that probably most Americans deal with because you'll see the causes here right now. But first and foremost, I need to talk about how does this work. Actually, yeah, we'll talk about how this works. So number 1, actually, you know what? No, we're going to go through the first cause and then we'll talk about how it works. Number 1, first thing that screws you up is sugar. Right? Sugar screws up your gut. And the reason that sugar screws up your gut is because your body is really trying to break down and use fat and protein and carbohydrates in a very efficient way for your body to run on energy. The problem with sugar is sugar actually is something that can quickly burn. So if you eat food, let's say you eat something that's got fat and sugar in it, your body winds up breaking down that sugar really fast. So in the digestive process, your body will burn the sugar and store the fat. That's right. So it burns the sugar and stores the fat. And of course, we store the fat in places that we don't want it to store. But what that's going to do is that's going to screw up the digestive process and the enzymatic function. So really reducing sugar is going to be your first way. And really one of the biggest things, honestly, in my opinion, about reducing sugar is it makes you hungry for other healthy foods. When you're always eating junk, your body doesn't crave the good stuff, if that makes sense. So we need to start to remove sugar so we eat more healthy foods. Right? The second big thing that we're going to look at here is dairy. And this is a big component of leaky gut. Now really, I know that some people are going to get real mad when I even talk about dairy. Really, raw dairy is very healthy for you. Raw dairy, it says in the Bible, the land of the milk and the honey. Raw dairy is very healthy for you. As a matter of fact, Jordan Rubin, if you're familiar with Jordan Rubin, he really healed himself with raw kefir because raw dairy is such a healing thing. The problem is commercialized milk is just bad for you. The homogenization process really splits up your milk into protein, the fat into sections that the fat your body can't really use. The pasteurization process is awful. It really cooks your milk and it takes everything that's live that your body needs to digest the milk and kills it. Of course, you know this because if you drink milk, you're going to, particularly processed dairy milk, you're going to get this like slime in your mouth. And that's because your body has to react to the milk. Well, that happens in your gut here. When you drink milk, your body is reacting to that milk, and it like creates a form of slime inside of your gut. And a mucus, it's really mucus is what is inside your gut, so your body can't transport really the good stuff in, the bad stuff out. So it's really bad. So that's why I really want to cut out our dairy. Wheat. Wheat is a big one. When we talk about the fixes, I'm going to really go through that. I think there's an H in there. Sorry about that. So wheat is a big guy, right? So the reason why wheat is such a cause of leaky gut is because wheat is actually In its naturally occurring form, whole wheat is a pretty big molecule that has what's called a germ, an endosperm, and an enzyme, which basically means that this thing is able to, it's got the enzyme packet that God gave it to break itself down and be reabsorbed. But wheat, unfortunately, commercialized wheat, they strip off this enzyme, they strip off the nutrition part of the wheat, and you wind up being stuck with really just the carbohydrate that also has gluten on it. Just the carbohydrate with gluten on it. Well, we wind up eating so much wheat that it actually winds up rotting our bellies. There's actually a really good book called Wheat Belly. That's really a major form of leaky gut. So wheat is going to be a bad guy. And then the fourth thing, of course, I'm just going to put this up here, is stress. Right? The reason that stress is such a big deal is because your adrenal system is designed to put blood in your muscles. Right? So when you get stressed out, like if you were to be, the way God designed is if there was a bear that came out of the woods and you had to run away from that bear, your adrenaline is designed to take blood away from your intestines and put it towards your muscles. Why? Real simple. Because if you're being chased by a bear, your body's not concerned about the long-term digestion of your food. It's concerned about the short-term getting the heck away from that bear. So that's why it shunts blood away from unnecessary organs like your intestines to put them to your muscles. The problem is here, particularly in the United States, we are super stressed out. And in that stress, it's the same adrenaline, just like you're being chased by a bear, except for it's shunting blood away from your intestines when your body's trying to digest. So basically, it slows down your peristalsis, and your food just sits in your gut and rots. And really, when it sits there and rots, that's when you get that leaky gut, so that transport of bad stuff getting back into your bloodstream and really poisoning you. So those are really the top 4 things that are going to screw you up. Now, this is where this is going to get really fun. We're talking about the fix. If you're a physiology nerd like I am, hang on tight because this is a lot of fun for me to explain because it's really important to know how the digestive process works. So first and foremost, the only thing, everybody thinks that your food is digested in your stomach. That is not true. Actually, nothing is absorbed in your stomach. Did you know that? Nothing is absorbed in your stomach. So when you first eat food, right, it goes into, this is your esophagus right here, right through here. When you first eat food, your salivary glands produce what's called salivary amylase. So it actually is going to start breaking down sugar right here in your food. We know that because if you eat a soda cracker and you chew it for long enough, it actually tastes sweet. That's because your body is breaking down those sugars, right, and turning them they're breaking down into complex sugars, into simple sugars, and that's what salivary amylase does. Right? It goes down in your esophagus. Nothing is digested in your esophagus. We get to your stomach. What does your stomach do? Are you ready? Your stomach has one job only, and that is to boil protein in acid. Okay? Your stomach has the ability, it drops the pH from anywhere between 3 to 4 on the pH, so it gets really acidic in your stomach, and it's boiling protein in acid. All that's trying to do is trying to break up your protein, called peptides, into smaller usable functions. That's all that happens in your stomach. There's no absorption that takes place. It's just breaking down protein, not breaking down fat, not breaking down sugar, not breaking down carbohydrate. Protein, that's it, right there in your stomach, okay? And it's gonna boil in there from about 45 minutes to 2 hours. That's why food sits in your gut. And really when you eat protein-rich food like steak, you want it to sit in your gut because you want it to break down with those enzymes. Now remember that because we're gonna use that in part of our fixes, okay? Then it goes on the other side of the stomach, you have a small part of your small intestine called your duodenum, right? Your duodenum is the part of your small intestine that is just kind of thicker because there's stomach acid, so that area is like a little tougher and thicker. But your duodenum is where you have what's called your common bile duct. So when your protein comes out of your stomach, it hits that small intestine, your body does 2 things. Number 1, it's going to secrete bile to break down fat. So the only thing that breaks down fat is bile. Bile is made in the liver. The blue organ here is the liver, but it's stored in the gallbladder, which is this little orange organ right here. And it goes so your gallbladder secretes a little bit of bile to help break down your fat. Also, you see this little light blue guy over here, maybe greenish, that's going to be your pancreas. So the alpha cells of your pancreas are going to secrete pancreatic amylase. And that amylase is basically something that breaks down sugar. So now watch this. Protein was boiled in your stomach, and then your body, in the next step, it secretes bile to break down fat, and amylase, an enzyme to break down sugar. Pretty cool, right? So now what's happening in the small intestine is your body is breaking down and further digesting your food. It's turning your, we're going to just pick on a hamburger, it's turning your hamburger into mush, and it's fat, protein, and carbohydrate. So it can digest it. So then your small intestine is responsible for most of the absorption of your food. From there we get to the large intestine, which is kind of down, and here's where it hooks in. By the way, that's where your appendix hangs out, is right over here. Your appendix is kind of like that. And then your large intestine is what's responsible really for dehydrating your food. It pulls the water out of your food. And there's a last little bit of digestion that happens. The peristalsis gets over. Your large intestine is actually kind of full of bacteria on purpose. Remember that. We're going to use that in a minute. Specifically, there's bacteria in your lower third of your large intestine. And that actually helps break down the last bit of food. It's really, really important. And then, of course, that food goes all the way out of your system. So that's a really cool physiology lesson, in my opinion, of how all this works. But how do we fix leaky gut? It's real simple. Number one is we need to work on digestive enzymes. Hopefully you can see this in the screen. Digestive enzymes is what that word is. Hopefully you can see it on the camera. Digestive enzymes. So basically, when you're eating your food, unfortunately, we kind of run out of the enzymes to break the food down in the commercial diet. That's why when we eat particularly our wheat, because the processing of wheat strips out the enzymes that allow us to digest that wheat, our body has to make those, and we run out of that. When we're eating particularly a lot of meat like we do in the United States, we run out of that acid. So we really need to help our body break this down if you have leaky gut. So a couple things that you can do, the digestive enzymes that we recommend in here. Number one is we sell one in here called Wobenzyme N. Right, this is a digestive enzyme that has really the big three. It's got an enzyme to break down protein, an enzyme to help break down fat, and an enzyme to help break down sugar or carbohydrates. Right? So Wobenzyme N, you're going to take this about 30 minutes before you eat, and that's going to help your body get enzyme rich. The cool part is you're going to need this if you're lacking energy, and you're going to find that particularly, my wife sometimes has this issue. She'll eat a lot of meat, and she just kind of feels cruddy afterwards. If she takes a digestive enzyme, she feels good afterwards, specifically as it helps her body to break down those dense proteins and break down her food. So it's really cool. The other one, of course, this is Dr. Josh Axe one. I love this. This is his digestive enzyme recipe, and it's apple cider vinegar. So there's really 5 things in it. So it's apple cider vinegar, lemon, cinnamon, honey, and water. Okay, apple cider vinegar, lemon, cinnamon, honey, and water. Those 5 things: apple cider vinegar, lemon, cinnamon, honey, and water. It actually tastes kind of good. You want to dilute it down, and then when you take that digestive enzyme, so that's kind of like a digestive enzyme in itself because there's acid in the apple cider vinegar. You're going to drink that, if you can, drink that 30 minutes before your meal, or you actually can sip on that with your meal. That's going to help to bathe your protein in acid in your stomach. That's a really nice digestive enzyme that we're going to recommend for a great fix, right? The second thing down here is going to be probiotics. So I'm sure you're familiar with the term probiotics. Why do we need probiotics? Well, probiotics happen on the back part of the gut that allows our body, that allows that flora in your colon, your large intestine, to be able to fully be broken down. So probiotics, you're definitely going to need probiotics. If you're having constipation, diarrheas, you definitely need probiotics. If you're feeling you're not getting energy from your food, probiotics. This is a really good staple. In my opinion, this is one of the things that every American needs to be doing every day, is a good probiotic. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. So we sell one in the office. It's a probiotic synergy. By the way, you should always be keeping your probiotic in the fridge because these are live bacterial cultures. You keep these bad boys in the fridge. So that's going to be a one that we use. We like Garden of Life as well. And then kiddos. Your kids need probiotics more than you think. So we have a couple of different versions of this. This one's a powdered version. We even put this in my kiddo's bottle, right? We put it in his bottle. You put a little spoon of it in there, and it really, really helps his digestion. Those of you who are ever putting your kids on antibiotics, or you have been on antibiotics, you have to do probiotics. Because research shows that it takes, ready for this? I want you to hear this, moms, particularly, 18 months before your gut flora is built back up after taking an antibiotic. So really that means if your kid is like, let's say 1 year old, and you give them an antibiotic, they're going to be 2.5 before their gut is back to working at 100%. So you need to speed that up as quick as possible, and that is going to be a raw probiotic. Now, by the way, if you're somebody who's like, hey, my kid's sick, what do I do? Colloidal silver. If you ever want to watch my video on colloidal silver, ask us about it. Colloidal silver is a natural antibiotic antifungal that doesn't screw up your gut. Super cool, right? Super cool. And it's one that you don't have to go to the doctor to get. You can just buy it on the shelf. We sell a ton of that here. Cool. So that's going to be your probiotic is going to be the big second fix. Right? The third fix here is we're going to do our gallbladder flush. Gallbladder flush. So, some of you are going to say, but Dr. Ben, I don't have a gallbladder. What do I do? You still need to do the gallbladder flush. Remember, when that fat hits your small intestine, your gallbladder has to have bile. Your body has to have bile to break the fat down. Your gallbladder squeezes to get that bile into your intestine, so it can break down your fat. Problem is this, is if you've ever had really a low-fat diet at some point, then that bile, rather than being squirted into your food, it sits there and churns and churns and churns and develops gallstones. Now, a lot of times medical doctors will be confused and thinking that your body cannot pass these gallstones. Well, I'm here to tell you, you can do a gallbladder flush. You can pass, we've had a patient pass stone the size of a golf ball. And you say, how is that even possible? It's like a snake eating a giant mouse. You know, the whole snake gets bigger. Well, that little bile duct seems really small, but it has the ability to dilate. There's a very specific gallbladder flush that we recommend, and I'm going to give it to you here in a minute. But for those of you who don't have a gallbladder, right, so your gallbladder's been removed, this is even worse because your liver makes the bile, but if you don't have a gallbladder, your liver has to store the bile. And you can get stones in your liver, which is really a big deal because that's going to screw up your whole enzyme function for your whole body. Because your liver is what makes most of the enzymes that help break down everything happens right here in your liver. So you do not want that thing to be gunked up. If you're having all these leaky gut issues, you clear out the liver, you're, by the way, going to find your hormones are going to get better. So this is going to be huge with endometriosis. This is going to be a thyroid issue by clearing out the liver. So we do a gallbladder flush. Now, there's a bunch of gallbladder flushes. Generally, a gallbladder flush is you actually wind up having to drink some olive oil with some lemon juice, and there's some Epsom salts involved to help dilate that. It's a kind of a gross flush, but it's really, really valuable. My dad's done it a bunch. He's had a bunch of gallstones over the years, and he passes them right out, and it's good. So I've got a special recipe for the gallstones. If you want my recipe, I'll make you a deal. So here's what you got to do. If you share this video, then I will email you my recipe. Now you have to share the video, and you have to private message our Facebook thing here, and we'll send you that. We'll email you the copy of that gallbladder flush. It's my favorite one because it really has the ability to relax the common bile duct the most, so that you can get the most stones out. We had one patient who had her gallbladder removed, and she, for one whole year, she was telling me, I'm not going to do, I kept telling her, you need to do a gallbladder flush. I don't have a gallbladder. You need to do it, because every symptom, she couldn't digest fat. She was, after she ate a fatty meal, she was groggy and fatigued. I said, you need to do a gallbladder flush. I said, you have gallstones in your liver. You need to get rid of them. No, I'm not going to do it. For a whole year. Finally, I said, listen, Liz, if you don't do a gallbladder flush, when you try to tell me your gallbladder symptoms, I'm going to stick my fingers in my ear. I'm going to ignore you because I can't handle it anymore. So she said finally she did it. And she's one of these people, by the way, she took a cell phone picture of her stool and Facebooked it to me. So don't do that, by the way. She did that. She had big, the first time she did it, she had like golf ball, actually more like marble-sized stones in her liver that came out. And by the way, these gallstones would wind up floating in your toilet. They're kind of cool, and in that weird kind of way. And she had marble-sized stones that came out. And she said, now what do? I feel really good, but like 3 or 4 days later, I'm kind of feeling bad again. I said, do it again. So she did a gallbladder flush once a week for like 4 or 5 weeks in a row. At first it was marble-sized stones, then it was pea-sized stones, then it was BB-sized stones, then it was like sand that came out of her liver. After that, she felt so good. Her hormones were better. She slept better. She digested her food better. So that's why I'm going to encourage that. Gallbladder flush is so powerful. If you want it, share this video, and then private message me, and I will email that to you, our exact recipe for our gallbladder flush. It's ingredients at home. It's nearly free. Okay? All right, the fourth thing that we can do to help leaky gut is chiropractic. I love this. Of course, I'm a chiropractor. Think, what does that have to do with gut? It's real simple. Your gut is controlled by your brain, right? So the message goes from the brain, down the spinal cord, out the nerve to the gut. If I cut the nerve to the intestines, you're done. You don't digest anything. If I pinch the nerve to the intestines or the gut, it doesn't work right. So there are so many people, and by the way, if you have low back pain, pinch these nerves out of position, if you're a woman who've ever had a baby, you have pinched nerves going to your colon, right, in your intestines. So that's why we go through and we unpinch those nerves. Because you got to realize, if your nerves are pinched going to your gut, it doesn't matter what you eat and do, your intestines are at a deficit. So if their nerve is pinched 20%, the best your gut's ever going to do is 80% function. So you're already having leaky gut just by having pinched nerves. So you have to get those nerves cleared out. Of course, if you're around me, come see us. We've got tons of deals going all the time. If you're around the nation, you need a consult or a referral, try to let me know. I'll try to find somebody for you. Okay, and the last thing is the most important one, and that's Jesus. Okay, because remember, the thing that screws up our gut a lot in this country is stress. The only way to remove that stress is giving that to the Lord. My favorite scripture on stress, actually read again this morning, says, listen, that even the sparrows don't have to work to prepare their meals. They don't have to worry about today. And if God cares that much about sparrows, how much infinitely more does he care about you? And obviously, he's going to take care of whatever that problem is, whether it's your spouse or your kids or your job. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's your house. I know right now there's so much flooding happening, even right here in Nashville. And we're all concerned. Well, guess what? God's got you. God's taking care of you. There's a difference between reacting to a problem to fix it and just being anxious and having anxiety and stress. Those are two big things. And giving that to the Lord allows you to just deal with the issue without having to absorb all that stress. Anyway, these are the big fixes here. These are the 4 bads, the 5 goods. If you like this video, make sure you share it, you like it, pass it on. I appreciate this. This was a lot of good teaching here, I think, on leaky gut. I'm Dr. Ben. If I don't know you personally, thank you so much for watching. If I do, thank you so much for watching.